Take five. I'm here in Helsinki. Good afternoon. It is the 27th of June. Last weekend was Juhannus, Midsummer, solstice, and biggest holiday in this part of the world. If you're above 60 degrees north or around thereabouts. And so everyone vacated Helsinki except for now the tourists all come in. But most everyone was at the lake, the kesämökki, the bonfires, the swimming, the sauna, the cooking outdoors, the Koskenkorva, everything. But the most exciting part of it is that you can walk ultra marathons every day, like I do. You take your morning walk, then you take your afternoon walk, and then you're like, wow, it's still so light. I feel like I want to get out into that light again. And so then you're like, you take an evening walk, and then it never gets, like, you never really have sunset, which is good or bad. Not so good for sleeping, but then you don't need sleep. You can get more done. We have what some people call the white nights, where you just have a few dusky hours. I mean, officially we only have 19 or so hours of daylight, and like on today, you have the wide breadth of blue, nice sunshine. Why am I? I'm not going to re-record this just because of that, but I'm here in the library because I'm working on a lot of projects. I'm doing a lot of writing these days, and I know that when I get home, it's still going to be bright and sunny. So I can take my long walk and everything out and get all of the benefits of being out in the sun. What I wanted to do, one poem by Robert Bly today. I was going to do Emily Dickinson, and then I was going to do Cesare Pavese. I've been thinking a lot about Pavese lately. I've been reading all of his novels and poetry in Italian and diaries. But I realized I haven't done one of these poetry videos in a long time. Part of that reason is because I got deeply into the poetry of Derek Walcott, the fantastic, one of the best poets of the 20th century from San Lucia. And I got so deeply into his poetry, I didn't realize how spectacular it is that, just word by word, how much he compressed into his poetry. And so I wanted to do some of his, but then it just took me into all these exciting directions in my mind, and I got a little bit lost in that. And I was reading a lot and writing a lot, and so I haven't been doing these poetry videos. But now we're going to get back. I'm going to try to do a few every week and see where it goes. It's more for me than for anyone else, but hopefully it might inspire someone else to read more and to read more out loud. I find it absolutely clarifies so many things in your life when you speak good words out loud, not just crummy words. The decorative humbug that sometimes passes for either your self-dialogue or for, interactive. And so I was thinking about this poem. Robert Bly loved, kind of in his, I don't know, when he first started writing them in his 50s or 60s, the ghazals, the Urdu or Persian form that's been around for well over 1,000 years. And he kind of made it his own. He was one of the few poets who successfully generated that style in English, and he liked it because his poetry always had these sudden changes in association, and he liked them because I think it gave him a backdrop, it gave him a frame, and he had already developed, written very successfully in prose poems, in short images poems, in longer narrative poems, and he had, but he found that the ghazal, like put in, it just suited him well, I guess. Let's just cut it like that. Anyway, and I also, and he uses this metaphor from this particular one. This is called "Growing Wings" from "My Sentence Was 1,000 Years of Joy," and he was unduly, surprisingly influenced by Wallace Stevens, who I think is the greatest poet of 20th century, or maybe even wider timeline. I always go back to Wallace Stevens, who I've loved since I was a teenager. And Robert Bly, his poetry is extraordinarily different from Wallace Stevens, and a lot less filigreed, a lot less intellectual, a lot less abstract, as some of Stevens' later poems were. Although in his initial book, Harmonium, you can see more clear parallels and influence between Bly and Stevens. But he also liked to make fun of him. In fact, he mentions Wallace Stevens in some of his poems, talks about, his his kind of upper middle class lifestyle. Wallace Stevens was an insurance executive who liked Key West and liked Florence, and said, "Oh, if only every one of us could have our morning walk and our 5-star hotel experiences, and etc. like that." But there's a lot of energy in that, because he knew that even though Wallace Stevens kind of lived that life, he got right down into the heart of things, in the way that few others did, in that Bly, kind of arced towards that level of eloquence and elegance in words and in, maybe not in lifestyle. Maybe Bly didn't care about that, other than his outfits and his cravats and things like that. But anyway, I'm rambling, but I want to get back to the poem, and we're going to do this, see how it goes. And it was it's in the last bit, in the last stanza, where, I mean, obviously he's hearkening back to Sunday Morning, which is one of the most gorgeous poems. I'm going to read that one of these days, although that'll be a very, very long section, where, and this ties back to Finnish summer. We're about into the foraging berries, the marjassa, the part of summer, which is great. You have the bilberries, the blueberries. We have some of the wild strawberries. If you're lucky, you can find them now. And then, of course, the cloudberries, which is the grand Arctic berry. But I thought of that poem, Sunday Morning. Sweet berries ripen in the wilderness, and in the isolation of the sky at evening, casual flocks of pigeons make ambiguous undulations as they sink downward to darkness on extended wings. And so very few people could write anything that gorgeous. I think that's one of the ones that Bly was always jealous of. And so it's like they pop up in some of his poetry in different ways, and he tells it in his own voice, and it's beautiful, and it fits in the context of what he's writing. But it took a great genius like Stevens to put it in a way that people want to emulate, right? And so of course he's talking about, as many of Stevens' poems were about, was that death gives us meaning. It's the fleeting nature that makes it so gorgeous, and that you can write something like that. And so Bly takes that in a little different direction, but it's like, let's just do this. It's already 10 minutes in, and I've just been rambling, so probably nobody's listening this far. He says growing wings, and he would bring up this all the time in his readings. It's all right if Cezanne goes on painting the same picture. It's all right if juice tastes bitter in our mouths. It's all right if the old man drags one useless foot. The apple on the tree of paradise hangs there for months. We wait for years and years on the lip of the falls. The blue-gray mountain keeps rising behind the black trees. It's all right if I feel this same pain until I die. A pain that we have earned gives more nourishment than the joy we won at the lottery last night. It's all right if the partridge's nest fills with snow. Why should the hunter complain if his bag is empty at dusk? It only means the bird will live another night. It's all right if we turn in all our keys tonight. It's all right if we give up our longing for the spiral. It's all right if the boat I love never reaches shore. If we're already so close to death, why should we complain? Robert, you've climbed so many trees to reach the nests. It's all right if you grow your wings on the way down. So it's actually better when you read it out loud. Like I encourage anyone to try it, or any of his other ghazals from My Sentence Was 1,000 Years of Joy, or The Night Abraham Called to the Stars. There's some really good ones in there. But he brought up this imagery, and sometimes when he wasn't reading his poetry, when he was talking fairy tales, when he was talking about just Jungian psychology with people like Robert Moore, he'd give lectures or discussions. And he said, yeah, if we're already so close to death, why should we complain? Robert, you've climbed so many trees to reach the nests. It's all right if you grow your wings on the way down. And then, so that's very different from the longer, more adjectives in the Stevens, ambiguous undulations as they sink downward to darkness on extended wings. But I think Bly talking about growing your wings and Stevens talking about extended wings downward to darkness. They're talking about somewhat the same thing, but you constantly have to revive. Culture is only one generation long if you're lucky, and then it's lost. So you've got to keep bringing it along. I had a conversation recently. I was out on one of the Kallio, one of the stones that you see all over Finland, and just somebody, this forest spirit came out of nowhere. I think he was a real person. We've emailed since then, but he's gone deeply into myth, traditions, alternative history, and the poetry. There's more poetry from the centuries made in Finland than almost any other culture on earth. It's amazing. It's not too far from here. There's an archive that supposedly has them all, but just so many hundreds of thousands of poems. And it's like, you realize that's how culture was transmitted. I mean, it's obvious, we've all heard this, but to actually think about it is something entirely different. We needed that, the rhythm, the music in poetry. That's how we tell our stories, right? It seems so basic, but it's lost in this era of AI slop and just, give me the facts, and people not thinking about their word choice. So I'm trying to get back to that. And you got to change yourself before you can change anything else in this world, I guess. But so Robert Bly found these ghazals. He found they're great vessels for expressing, your own philosophizing, your own um, meditations on everyday life, but also like bringing in. But there's something casual and conversational about them. A lot of his poetry is conversational, but there's a structure, but there's also a simplicity, but it gives you chances to transcend. And I think that's how I liked it. That there can be very very abstract, subtle connections between the stanzas, and then you can bring in this energy, but when it's compressed and you have to state things quickly, it changes your mind and it changes the output, right? And then there's also repetition. He liked the repetition. It's like, it's all right if Cezanne goes on painting the same picture. It's all right if the juice tastes bitter in our mouths. It's all right if the old man drags one useless foot. It's all right if we turn in our keys tonight. It's all right if we give up our longing for the spiral. It's all right if the boat I love never reaches shore. And so those are some ideas in it. I encourage you to see the actual words on the page or on the screen, and to read it out loud yourself and see if any of it makes sense or if it aligns with anything that you're thinking right now. Also, why would he bring up? He would always bring up this idea of the extended wings on your way down, because he said we often don't think of the vertical in our lives, in our connection to ancestry, our connection to the greater things, the words passed down from the centuries, from different cultures, whether it be ancient Greek or the Sufi mystics. And so he said that's the energy he wanted to bring back into life. And then, of course, in our contemporary culture, despite, or not despite, but in addition to all this horizontal energy, everybody's friends, everyone's a sibling, we don't have direction upward. We don't even think about it. Most people don't know who their great-grandfather was, and why that matters. If you want new ideas, go read a book that was written 3 centuries ago in a language that, is foreign to you. Might take a while. It might take some additional study before you get there, but why is that worth it? And so he brought up this imagery all the time. The wings downward to darkness. In the Stevens, or in his, it's like just on the way down, which is a little more abstract and less imagistic. But it calls in this energy, and then he would repeat it again and again and again, because all we praise is the ascent. And that's fine. It's beautiful. It's part of life, but we don't think deeply enough about our own progression and the beauty in different stages of life, and how the mind shifts, and how our relation to previous generations, our relation to the next generations, and what we can share, and what enthusiasms there can be in all these different stages. It's like it's just as exciting to feel the energy on the way down. Is not where in a culture that only praises everything. We have to be more profitable than we were last year. We have to do something new or supposedly innovative just to say that it's new and improved, all that kind of bullshit. And so he's, instead of fighting against yourself and living these fake personas and living in this plastic world, just let it come, let evening come, as Jane Kenyon said somewhere ways. And it's not It's not depressing at all. It's it's just it's just life, right? I think that's what he was trying to get you to, that there are I actually, yeah, this is funny. I don't know why I thought of them recently. When I was living in Milano, I ran into this Finnish couple from Turku, and they were down. Yeah, that's right. The only reason I met them is because Finnair had some issues at that time, and they had to stay an extra day in Italy. And they had this guy was a very successful businessman, but we talked about many things, cultural things, foods. We talked about Midsummer, um, things like that. I forget what time of year it was. I think it was spring. But he said, that I got from his philosophy that you have three moments in life, and this is a cliche. You've probably heard this a million times, but it's like, you have your birth, your death, and right now. And it's actually, if you meditate on that for a bit, it's actually more profound than you might think at first. I mean, yes, it's obvious. Yes, you've heard it before, but but that little, it's kind of like a red little laser pointer, red dot. That's how I was envisioning it. That's what it is. This right now idea, whatever that means. I like the labyrinth. I like Faulkner saying, the past is not dead, it's not even past. Because you can reinvigorate, contextualize, and get inspiration from all those points. But it does make sense that you have to say, okay, well, 10 years have passed. I'm in a different place in my life now, and I view things differently. I've gained all this wisdom or something. Or maybe I've just read a lot more and experienced a lot more. But I have a way, but there's a way to um, um, crystallize that, compress that, make it into something beautiful in whatever form. And I think that's, you know, um, that energy is in all human faces. No matter how many layers we put on, how we've tried to protect ourselves, how we've pushed away, condemned things we don't like, or things we haven't learned how to grapple with, knots we need to untie. And so it's all right. It's all right if we turn in our keys tonight. It's all right if we give up our longing for the spiral. It's all right if the boat I love never reaches shore. If we're already so close to death, why should we complain? Robert, you've climbed so many trees to reach the nests. It's all right if you grow your wings on the way down. Thank you. Enjoy. I hope you have a lot of love and light where you are. It's gorgeous here in Helsinki, and I'm going to leave the library soon and get back into the light. I might take my 20, 30 daily kilometer walk, which I haven't done yet today, and it's already almost 15, almost 3 o'clock. I think there was a French was it Sartre who said that 3 o'clock is either too early or too late. But anyway, I wish you all the best and see you soon.